Hey everybody, it is InnRoads Plays. Well, no, it's the RPG Jam session. I just played InnRoads Plays because I was gaming online and I was having a whole bunch of fun doing that. And then I bring this guy over here, this Mr. Jason Woods. Jason, how are you, man?
I am great. It is Mardi Gras in New Orleans, Louisiana. We've been having a good time today, and so I'm happy to finish my Mardi Gras day off, Fat Tuesday, with you, Jeff.
I'm really honored. I'm really honored, and I'm feeling a certain lack of some of the accoutrement that comes along
Yeah,
with
man.
Mardi
I
Gras.
got my beads here, but I'm drinking water. You know, when you're out at the parade having a beer at 10 o'clock in the morning, you got to bounce out water at night. So
That's right. You got a water interval, interval beer, water. I mean, I guess I could like tie a bunch of Jawas around my neck or something, but that could be kind of cultish. I don't know.
there's actually a crew in New Orleans called the Crew of Chewbacca's, and it's not a big crew. So the crew is someone who does a parade in town. So
Right.
Crew of Chewbacca's is a sci-fi fantasy, and everybody makes their own throws and makes their own costumes and stuff. So I bet they've had something like that. But Peter Mayhew actually was the king of the crew 2 years ago and rode in their parade. So
Sick.
you,
That's so
you would
good.
be comfortable in New Orleans with whatever your accoutrement.
Well, good. You know what? I like to hear that. I grew up in Houston, so not too far away, but you're like right there. You're right in your town, so
Exactly.
you can hop in there at your leisure. But sometimes when you're not in town, you can't actually go to town. So you end up even having to do like some kind of online thing,
Hmm.
and I mean that's kind of why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here.
Yeah, as we're here to talk a little bit about online trials and tribulations, because we're connected, and this is how we connect now. Us nerds and geeks, we play games online, not just shoot 'em up Halo stuff like I used to like to do, but now we're also doing role playing games. It's been around for a while. I think for a few years they've been doing it, and Geek and Sundry has their stuff, and MJP with the role play shows, they're doing a bang up job there. RPG Academy is getting into the groove here recently, and then of course InnRoads Plays. We've been doing this for I think about 3, almost 4 years now, where we started off with D&D and then we kind of drifted into a few other games. But we've had our chance to get together and do a little Star Wars action, so that was kind of fun. I had a really good time with that. So um, I think
I lost you. You're back.
yeah, I thought I lost you there for a second. And here we go. This is exactly what we're talking about is internet connectivity. It's how do we best leverage what we're doing? How do we best leverage what we're doing online when we're doing role playing games? There's a lot of tools out there. So lead us off, Jason. Let me turn the mic over to you. What kind of things have you run into when it comes to that?
So when we first started playing online, so I've been playing tabletop role playing games for about 5.5 years, and when we first started playing 5.5 years ago, it was a local group, but pretty quickly I wanted to play with my brothers who don't live here in town. I wanted to play with buddies of mine from college and seminary, and so I sent out an email and said, "Hey, I think we can figure out a way to play online." I don't even know if Roll20 was around at that point.
I
I know
don't know.
we were not aware of it if it was. And so what we did was we used Google Plus Hangouts. It's probably, I don't even think Google Plus exists anymore, does it? But it was Hangouts.
It's there. I think they have like 3 people that are supporting it right
Right.
now for the whole universe.
So we would use Google Plus Hangouts, and I would actually use this contraption of guitar stands and a webcam that I would hold up above a map. And I would have north, south, east, and west drawn on the maps. And when people wanted their miniatures moved, I had to move their miniature for them. We were playing fourth edition, so there was a lot of kind of that
Oh
tactical
man.
that sort of
Did you
stuff.
get the pusher stick? Like, like
I,
in World War
I
II?
thought about it. I just have a really long cord on my headphones here, so I could go all the way around the table. And so we started with that, and I tell you that the trials and tribulations were many, but we were committed to making it work. We were enjoying it, and it was a fun process. But now, we were just talking earlier about that campaign as it went on for 3 years, every week for 3 years. We took summers off, at least a couple of months each summer. we eventually shifted into using Roll20, which had a really great integration with Hangouts. So we could be looking at one of those spaces, and we could jump over and see the map, and it was seamless and it worked great, and none of us had any difficulty with it. But after about 3 years of playing, our story came to an end, and I really wanted to kind of get back to playing around a table. And so I started a group here locally that we were playing more regularly. But with the advent of me kind of jumping into first edition AD&D, I wanted to go back and have those guys play some old Gygax stuff with me. Mm-hmm. So we've re-engaged using Roll20 only. The Google Hangouts is dropping the Roll20 plugin in April. I don't know if y'all know that or not, if you use that, but in April it's phasing out. And so we've just been using the audio video in Roll20, and it's working okay for us, but we've had a lot of bandwidth issues. And I'm not really sure why we're having the issues we had before. I know Daniel Fisher's a big fan of Fantasy Grounds, right, but that's a PC-only product, and I use Mac. So that's another issue too, is not all the software that's available can be used by everyone on every computer. And so right now we're using Roll20. It seems to work well. But you were saying that, this is something I've heard other people say, that you actually use two different programs, one for your maps and one for your audio video.
Yeah, and a third one if you include the recording apparatus as well.
Right.
But yeah, I've been like over the last few months, I've been kind of toying around with different combinations. Roll20 has, it's always been my tried and true go-to when it comes to online gaming. That's where I kind of started the whole thing with InnRoads Plays, and that's kind of where we've continued. But as they've been launching into more and more innovations and bringing in more and more players, it seems that the bandwidth has been kind of becoming, a little bit harder to come by when it comes to sharing audio video there. And to Daniel Fisher's credit, I know that the Fantasy Grounds is looking to add in a component of that communication. So, let's see what they do with managing bandwidth and controlling that situation there. So yeah, I finally landed with Zoom. I've been using Zoom video conferencing for the past couple of months. I tried out a few different things, Skype, a combination of YouTube Hangouts as a separate module along with Roll20 as a separate function, just because when I was combining it kind of got a little janky, and then also, like you said, they're going to be getting rid of the combo anyway. But, YouTube Hangouts or Google Hangouts was just not as dependable. So we went with, or I went with Zoom. And so far it's been able to try and squeeze as much data as it can through the communication or through the connection. And folks right now are able to kind of see, with your video connection, it's a little spotty, but at least the audio is maintaining. So it's still able to crank out the audio as a dependable connection, which is nice. But, it's... now I've got to manage two things as a game master, right? I've got to manage maps. If I'm in a RPG that's map heavy, I got to manage that too.
Yeah.
And so I've got to bounce between two things, and it's okay. I don't mind it too much, but so far the combo of having the ever so often map the situation going on with Roll20 and dice rolling, I've been able to hold it there, and then have Zoom as my communications platform.
And this is one thing I'll add on for the GMs out there is I really struggle as a GM and as a player, maybe even especially as a player, when I can't see video. Even if it is kind of spotty, if it kind of goes in and out, that's fine. But the last few sessions we've been playing, I've had to do it without video. And when you're not seeing people's nonverbals, it's really hard to know what they're thinking or if they're even awake. So, no lie, 2 weeks ago, we're playing, and we're pushing 10:30. We're getting close to our cutoff at 11 o'clock, and I hear snoring.
Oh, no.
And I see the volume bar on my brother's little box in Roll20. And I was like, dude, Jonathan, wake up. And he goes, that's my dog snoring.
Oh.
And but when you can't see what people are doing, it's really hard to how to respond as a GM and as a player. So it's a struggle if you don't have video. And so if I'm going to play a long-term campaign with folks, I require that they use a camera. I just kind of say this is a requirement up front, and it's $30 to get a decent webcam. And I understand if you have a bad internet connection or something like that, maybe we can work something out. But most people find that to be reasonable, you know.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's it's all a game of trying to replace the round the table feel, to be live and in person, that sort of thing. And we've I've talked about it on this show before, about wanting to keep games going, and then in the effort of doing so in a crazy madcap world where you have to major in adulting, you have to roll 20s every day just to make sure that you're alive, and then you're going to somehow squeeze gaming in somewhere, some way, shape, or form. So for folks that have jobs, not just being an adult but just having a job and having a life, it's so much easier to not have to worry about drive time, packing stuff up, and just being able to go online and do your game. Well,
that makes me think of two different things as it pertains to online gaming. First of all, and you mentioned this, is preparing in terms of maps is challenging when you're doing online gaming.
Can be, yeah.
Because, you got to find the right tokens and maps and that sort of thing, and roll 20 and drag them on and do all that sort of stuff, unless you do it ahead of time, in which case you almost have to kind of railroad your players to the things you've already prepared. So that can be challenging, unless you can play a game that doesn't require maps. And so I think Brian had asked on the Tavern, what sorts of games do you prefer to play online? If a game doesn't require maps, it's actually much easier. That takes one whole component out of it. You don't even have to bother roll 20. You can just use Skype or whatever audio works for you. So I think that's something worth considering if you're going to GM online. But the other thing too, you said, you're trying to recreate something online that normally you would have around a tabletop. And I maybe push back a little bit there and say, well, what are you really trying to create in online gaming? Because there's a lot of different kinds of games. Like if you're a world building GM, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I've played with guys that you sit down at their table and they hand you a sheet and it's got like he's drawn the crest of the army,
the particular knight's house or something like that.
Yeah, and you've got handouts. You've got this very kind of deep process, and you have to really think through, okay, well, what's the world we're living in, and who are these people we're interacting with? And you can have a game like that online, but I think it's going to be harder. It's just going to be more in terms of preparation on the front end. But a world-building GM likes to put that time in anyway. Yeah. I think if you say, hey, I want to run a 5 to 10 session group in a tavern, let's get a group together, that's going to be really easy, I think. There's not a lot of investment you have to do in terms of preparation and that sort of thing, just for a short-term gig. And what is that recreating? It's not actually recreating what you would have at your tabletop at home, because most of the people that come into my home and play here, I know from the local comic shop, we played other games there. We've got a relationship already. But a lot of what you're doing online, especially through the Tavern or other websites like it, or InnRoads Ministries, other websites like it, is you're just getting to know people. And so I don't personally feel like it's as much pressure. You're all trying something new together, and maybe some people might feel pressure because they don't know these people. But for me,
I can see that. I've definitely, and my hat's off to the Tavern and to a couple other groups where I've been able to like sneak in on some one shots here and there. It's definitely a fantastic vehicle for learning or meeting people and learning about them and becoming fast friends. I wouldn't have known you had I not gotten involved in something like this. But you know what? I'll repost your repost, and I'll say that I've actually got some longer term games out of this where, I am actually looking to try and replace a round the table thing with my long term friends. The guys that I used to game with for about 25 years, almost 30 years now, because we've kind of reconnected using these online tools. So it can be a combination, I think, of both. Because if I didn't have Roll20, then I couldn't game with my buddy up in Redlands, and I couldn't game with a buddy in DC, and I've got another friend that's out in Denmark that we get together sometimes in games. So
well, here's why I push back, and it has nothing to do with you, but for people who are listening. So the first time you GM online, it's not going to be like the last game you played around your table.
Oh, what a
And
mess. Sorry, I'm done.
no, it's true. And when
Let's be real.
and as you kind of figure out how you do it online, how you personally do it online, and how your group works, it's going to create a new thing.
Oh yeah,
And
it's a different dynamic altogether.
the dynamic's very different. And so, like my local group, when we're done on Friday night, we sit around and we talk about it, and we stand around and jaw. My online group, it's not that way. We say, "Good night, game's over, they're gone."
That's it.
But I call them that week, or I message them on Twitter, and we go back and forth. And so the conversation happens differently. So it's not it's just a different kind of community, and it's a different kind of gaming group, and it's just going to be different. But it's great. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I did it for 3 years, and this one, now that we're back into it playing AD&D, I'm kind of like, man, don't tell them that I said this, but I'm working on a homebrew campaign to follow the module we're working on right now.
Nice.
I'm enjoying the Gygax stuff, but I've got to be a little creative in that.
Yeah, you got to kind of break out of that. I mean, it lays some pretty good groundwork that you can launch off of, and you have a history that you're going to be bringing to the table, which is nice. Yeah, you know what? And again, this show is really geared more towards the new GM. And you bring up a really good point, is the different dynamic that you have online. Like you said, as soon as you're done, you're done. You know, you say, okay, well, you know, I'll say this. The interesting thing about playing online is that I take it all the way up to the limit, because I know I don't have to drive anywhere. I know I don't have to, like, you know, get changed or something, because chances are I'm probably wearing my jammy jams right at the time we're gaming anyway. So I know that as soon as I'm done here, I'm probably going to go right into bed or something, and I'll be done. So, but that, like you said, and I think it was Brian that actually brought this up, was the idea of how do you kind of keep the flow going in between sessions. Right. And just like you said, messaging people through Facebook Messenger or through Twitter or whatever, just to kind of keep those creative juices flowing in my opinion, I think it's really needed, because it's really super, super easy to let a session or a campaign kind of go by the wayside as more time gathers between them. So,
well, I still try, if possible, to play every week when I'm playing online. I'm a firm believer in that if you're going to play, let's play every week. Because when the longer those stretches get, if somebody misses a session, so now it's 6 weeks since they played, to me, that's always a real challenge. And so I really try to play weekly. And so that's why, you know, a lot of the online games I'll play, I'll say, let's do 5 sessions. Let's do 3 sessions. Because everybody can say, yeah, I can do 3 weeks in a row, no sweat. Or you could skip and do every other week, and it's not going to be that bad. But another thing we did on our 3-year-long campaign was I would send them on usually Sunday or Monday. I think we were playing Monday nights. I'd send in the morning the theme song for the session. And so I'd pick some kind of song that kind of matched with the tone of where I thought things were going to go, and would have kind of a little intro in an email, and it'd start this little email banter throughout the day. People are at work kind of going back and forth, and sometimes in character, sometimes not, kind of almost play by posty sort of thing. Sure. And so it was really, that was a fun thing to do as well.
You brought that out in me when we did our Star Wars game, because I was doing my character, I was doing all my posts in character.
See, I think Bullet is just your alter ego.
It might be. I'm bringing him back for Brian's game. So.
Twisted assassin droid.
Yeah. But well, I found out. I mean, he's a killer pilot. You know, he's a real killer pilot. He's good. But yeah, you know what? That's there's 2 things. You can feel that it's limiting to have, you know, this online venue as kind of your source of gaming, and this is how you're doing your GMing. But it could also be very liberating when you find. Yeah. When you find that super awesome combination of tools that works for your gaming group, and I'll come back to that in a second. When you find that awesome combination that works for your gaming group, it's gonna explode. And like you said, you'll have little play-by-post things. I love the idea, and I'm gonna definitely put it in the show notes. I love the idea of like sending out theme songs for that week. I think that is so awesome. I love that. You know, things that I've done between sessions is like do a previously on, you know, a little vignette type thing, like at the beginning of something. But it's those kinds of things that you can do in an online venue where different combinations might actually work for different groups. You know, some groups may all be like connected within Slack, There's that kind of project management software that you can go across different platforms and you can do things through there. Or using Roll20. Actually, I've had one group where we did all of our stuff exclusively in Roll20 because we could actually access it through the phone. So you could actually do chat back and forth in the little chat window, do little play-by-post stuff as you're going back and forth, and then also, like, I can compile notes and that sort of thing. It's not as intuitive as it could be because when you're in there, it's dedicated for a larger screen, at least a tablet. Yeah, I mean, there's different groups are going to kind of gravitate towards what different combinations of tools. So I would actually say, lay out the foundations of how you want to connect, whether it's via Zoom or Roll20 or Google Hangouts or whatever. Get that initially set up, set that expectation, and then as you get to know your group, especially if it's a new group you're getting together with, start looking and see what kind of tools they use online. Are they using things like Facebook Messenger over and over again? Are they using Facebook closed groups or Slack or what was the other one? Trello, I think it was called, something like that. That's another Trello. Yeah, I've heard that one's really good. So, see what kind of tools that they like and they enjoy together, and then that's going to prompt them to want to be connected in between sessions. I think that might be an opportunity for us.
We're using Facebook Messenger to stay connected outside of play, and sometimes even inside play. Like there'll be a little bit of banter between characters or between players on Facebook Messenger.
Nice.
I can kind of keep an eye on it. But before we used to do we'd have an email thread each week that just kind of went back and forth. But Facebook Messenger seems to be a little more
a little more active.
Yeah.
And these days, it seems like everybody is like. It's funny. I feel like when I'm looking at email on my phone, I know it's instantaneous. Jason, I know it's instantaneous, but somehow I feel it's slower. It's a psychological thing that I can't seem to break. I look at it, I'm like, who's emailing me? Just instant message me. Jeez, you can put pictures and video. Come on, man. But I'm just like, what am I doing? I got to stop that. But so if you had your druthers, like your all-time awesome combo of online connectivity, what kind of things do you look for when you're setting up your session? What's the go-tos for you?
When I'm setting up, in which way?
Like if you're going to be planning for a session, you were talking about putting together maps and that sort of thing. I mean, do you use a Donjon? I know Donjon's out there where you can do like quick little 3-minute maps that'll just pre-generate a map for you and you can use that, or do you actually go and draw the maps and then scan them in and that sort of stuff?
So I use Roll20, and I do like the tools they have on there where they have a little field where you can search for different map tiles and that sort of thing, and I just drag and drop them. And so I'll drag and drop and kind of build what I'm using right now. So I'm going through Against the Cult of the Reptile God, which is
my favorite. Hang on, let me enjoy that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I think you were the one who persuaded me to get it.
That's so good. It's so good.
It is great. It's really good. It's kind of Invasion of the Body Snatcher sort of feel. My players have told me it feels like a horror movie. Like it's just this slow creep going on.
It does, and it doesn't, like, how a lot of horror modules will like wear out their welcome. This one doesn't. It's as classic as it is, and it's been redone a couple of times too, which is homage to its goodness. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. But I gush. Please go ahead.
So what I've been doing, I've got a hard copy, but I also bought the PDF on DriveThruRPG, and which I love that we can get stuff PDF through there.
Yes.
So I've been actually just copying the maps straight out of the book and putting it in Roll20. And so I've been using the maps straight from the book as a grid. And if they need something movable, for instance, they were going up into the second floor of the Golden Grain Inn to get some mattresses. This was a foolish choice. So to get some mattresses to carry them across the street to rest in the jail. They didn't trust them. No. And so they needed mattresses to carry. So I typed mattress, and there was a mattress, and I dragged it. You can find almost anything on Roll20 to use the token, and they got really nervous when I said, "Okay, who's walking backwards and who's walking forwards and carrying the mattresses?" I don't like that he needs to know those details. Needless to
Right.
say, they get attacked while carrying mattresses. So
And as an honorific to your recent exploits in that regard, I was going to start this show with Alicia Keys' great hit "This Mattress Is on Fire." I thought that would be appropriate, but I couldn't get the rights. I couldn't secure the rights in time. So
and what's crazy is our players. If you don't know to what he's referring, this is a blog post that I had today that
check
talked
his
about.
blog.
So one of the players took a lantern and lit one of these mattresses on fire as a shield against the enemies. It was not a terrible idea,
No.
except they're in a wooden building, and but a lot of first-time players resort to arson. That's not my players really. This is the first time we've had a building just straight up burned down in a while. So
and you don't realize in this time, these medieval times, that the higher class inns had a lot of lacquer, But yeah.
We digress.
We digress. We do that often on this show. It's okay.
Roll20 works fine for me. I just drag and drop. In my own home at this table when I play, I have a really big map that I roll out, and I use, wet erase and scribbles and that sort of thing. But that's one thing that I like about Roll20 is it's all kind of included there, and it's just kind of drag and drop. And so even if back in the day in our 4th edition campaign, if they came to an area and they start a fight with somebody that I hadn't planned on, I could pretty easily toss something together. I'd say, all right, let's take a 5-minute break. Y'all go hit the bathroom. We'll get a beer, and I'll throw a map together for when you're back. So
yeah. And that's a good point. That's a good point. Don't be afraid to take a break, even if you're around the table or if you're online. Don't be afraid to take a break and just to get things set up. Yeah. So
don't expect your maps to look like what you're going to see in a book or on one of these Critical Role or something like that. Which I've actually not watched any of those. I don't know if they even use maps on them, but
yeah,
I would imagine they do.
I don't know on Critical Role. I haven't seen very many. I know that on Itme JP's role play show they do, but the thing is that their game master in residence works for Roll20. He's actually the game master residence in Everett, so he has got a lot of practice doing it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has people doing it for him.
I wouldn't doubt it. He's gotten big time, but and this is a good point too. Is that setting expectations? Remember we talked about earlier about how do you want to connect, and then just lay that out for the players, and then as we've been kind of talking back and forth, there's so many tools out there that'll make your head spin. But lay the expectations down that also takes into account your skill level. If you're just now starting off with Roll20 or with Fantasy Grounds or any other online tool, don't sit there and say, hey, we're going to have grid maps and you're going to be able to move your tokens and all this stuff and send me all this stuff and I'll be able to put it together this week. Set reasonable expectations. And, if chances are, if the players are willing to spend 2 or 3 or 4 or more hours with you, they're going to give you a little bit of slack because they know you're putting in the work.
Yeah, and they're learning with you too.
Exactly, yeah. Because I would have a little bit more functional knowledge, but not so much that you. Gosh, how do you say this right and not sound like you're trying to be all snooty? Know a little bit more than your players, but not so much that you have to spend a whole week or 3 weeks going through a treatise on how to roll in Roll20 or play Fantasy Grounds. You don't have to do that. Time and skill and practice are going to help you learn.
I've played 200 hours on Roll20 and I still don't have all the stuff figured out.
Yeah.
So, So that said, in coming back to Roll20 recently, and I have it right here, I have my 5th edition player's handbook. I'm playing 1st edition AD&D, but I'm reading this. I'm like 3/4 of the way through. You can buy 5th edition stuff on Roll20 and on Fantasy Grounds.
Yep.
And my understanding is the maps are already programmed in there. So if you play, Horde of the Dragon Queen or Storm King's Thunder, whatever the names of them are, you can buy it on there, and you have all the resources available to you.
Yeah, so, I think Fantasy Grounds has Roll20 a little bit edged out as far as how many modules they have built in, but yeah, they have. I know that they're going to be updating with the Monster Manual, which sounds kind of behind the times for Roll20, but they're going to be adding in a whole bunch of new tokens and maps, and to your point, the tables and stuff. But
I've not paid a dime for Roll20.
Yeah, I do have a subscription.
I played 200 hours for free, so that means I'm limited in some of the things I can use.
But not much. Not by much. Not by much. I mean, yeah, I have a great time paying. I'm happy paying my subscription ongoing, just because I know how much work and community work and just complete total effort goes into like putting something like this together, and I just want to honor that. And I don't mind having a subscription or getting a subscription with Fantasy Grounds either, because of, just like I said, the amount of work that goes into it. So it's just I think sometimes, like, if you as a GM decide you want to have extra bells and whistles and stuff, I mean, the options are out there. But to Jason's point, I mean, you could be on with something like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. I mean, albeit you do have to install something there, but with Roll20, it's web browser based. Chrome and Firefox work the best, and you could be online and playing in a matter of minutes.
So one thing we've started doing, going back to the whole like how you get your text stuff straight, is I've been using Opera. Have you even heard of Opera before?
That's on Mac, right?
No, Opera's available for Mac, PC, and Linux.
Okay.
It's a really lightweight browser. It is so fast. My brother introduced it to me a couple weeks ago, so I've been using that for Roll20, and it's been faster than Firefox and Chrome were.
Have you been able to use the cameras and stuff on there?
Yeah, it's worked better.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That actually, you know what, and people who've been in my games the last few months know this, that with all of the innovation that's been just kind of just stampeding out of the Roll20 warehouses, it's been taking a hit. And then I think we mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's been taking a hit on bandwidth when it comes to audio visual. You have to hit that reconnect button over and over and over again to get it to work. But if it's something that can keep everything in one application and you're not having to have multiple things open like I do, that's pretty good.
It's worth checking out. Checking out
for sure. So Opera. All right, I'll make a note of that down below. Once this gets posted onto YouTube, we'll have some show notes and stuff based on our discussion, as always. Well, I'll give you some room here. Is there anything that you want to close up on? I know we've had some discussion on the tools of the trade and getting started, setting expectations. We drifted a little bit into like what kind of games really behoove themselves to be in this kind of medium.
Right.
Maps can kind of be a hindrance where you're trying to generate maps and stuff like that on the fly. Sometimes you can paint yourself into a corner, like you said, if you're having to set it up ahead of time. But are there certain games that you feel really do well in this medium?
Well, I think FFG Star Wars game is really, really easy to GM on online. Granted, I don't make people roll their dice online with any kind of dice roller. I just trust people are not going to lie to me. maybe I shouldn't, but I like feeling dice in my hand, and so I don't want to click a button. I don't trust the computer. It's always watching. But
I don't understand, Jason. Why don't you like me?
Exactly. No, the FFG Star Wars game has been really, really smooth to play online for me, and the Mouse Guard RPG I actually played online with Brent Brown a few times.
Cool.
That's a fun. That's never one I played seriously, but it's another one that's very kind of narrative focused, no maps, and so it's really easy to play. Yeah. So I'm playing AD&D right now, and it's tough. It is tough because you have such a large party size. It's causing more tech issues for us. But the good news is it's not as kind of tactical as 4th edition was. And so you don't need the maps as much as you did then. And so we're making it work, and it's going well, and each week is getting better. We've had 4 sessions now, and in each session, not only are the tech issues subsiding more, but we're able to focus more on role play, and it's becoming a more natural thing for us. So it's like learning to ride a bike all over again. Yeah. But the more tactical it is, I think the harder it is to play. But the more narrative based, I find it easier.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've done my fair share of shouting my love for any game powered by the apocalypse. I've probably got some kind of a tattooed somewhere, I think. But yeah, I totally agree. The narrative based games really do well within Roll20. Or within, I guess, the online medium, I should say, and a lot of that has to do with less so much with the players, and I think more for GMs, and obviously for the new GMs out there, knowing what you have to do in a game to keep the game moving forward can sometimes, be a stumbling block here and there. Like, which dice do I pick up? Do I need to get a character sheet? Or do I need to do these maps? Do I need to do sound or something like that? That kind of thing. You've got so many things in front of you to work with. You're like, oh, what do I pick? If you want to kind of build yourself towards something like a Shadowrun, like the complete opposite of, I mean, it's a narrative game, but I mean, it's so crunchy. Right. Work your way up towards that and kind of build your skill level and comfortability of working with the, as TR Knight calls it, the fiddly bits of the online medium. But I'm in the same boat with you. I've gone from doing Shadowrun. I ran Shadowrun second edition online here. First edition, then second edition, then third edition on Roll20 because they have the separate character sheets and stuff. But and then I've gone and I've really just settled in with 5e and Dungeon World. Those are kind of the two games that I've really fallen in love with. I'm going to be doing the Sprawl here, but that's another Powered by the Apocalypse game. It's just set in a cyberpunk genre. So I do think that the narrative is cool. I like the idea of having the ability to have fiddly bits involved, so that's kind of cool. For instance, with the Sprawl, there's a new character sheet they put in a Roll20 that has a bunch of cool little wingdings in there. Like you can broadcast things to the chat box, like if you want to show different pictures, or it has cool. Nice little functional elements within the character sheets, which is really neat. So after a while, you get used to the medium, and then you start taking advantage of the medium. Right. Because you can do some things there that you can't do in real life. I mean, it's to the point that I know, speaking of Brent Brown, I know he has that the new trend is if you got it, you get it, is these fancy desks or fancy tables, man. And they have a built-in screen right there. So a lot of times, cool. Like if you've got a map and you want to display it, I mean, hell's bells. I mean, I have my players here, but I'm still going to log in and Roll20 and I'm going to display the map there. And we can move our minis on top of the screen or whatever. So it's even in our live plays, our direct, our face-to-face, technology kind of pervades into it. So
it's going to be amazing 5 years from now to look at what tabletop gaming online, what the experience is really like, because it's still very much, I think, in an early stage. And some of these companies are really starting to come of age, especially with these integrations now with WotC and other companies that are connecting with Roll20 and Fantasy Ground. It's going to explode. I'm convinced that in the last 5 years, we've seen a renaissance in tabletop gaming. There's been a real resurgence, and I've seen growth in our small areas. We live outside New Orleans, a pretty small community. But it's a really strong tabletop gaming community, and so cool. It'll be neat to see how it continues to develop. These tables like Brett's got are just ridiculous.
Very fancy, very fancy. I did enjoy seeing pictures of that. So, in the hopes that one day I may have one of my own. But,
so, what is the worst online gaming experience you've ever had, and then the best one? So, kind of paint the picture for us to help our new GMs feel okay with the rough ones, and then know that they've got good stuff to look forward to.
That's a good point. I will say that the worst experience that I had is a tie between the first time I tried to run Shadowrun First Edition on Roll20, and then also when we first started our D&D game for InnRoads, because that was kind of like the big major first experience I had with online role-playing. And that was when we were trying to use Google Hangouts and Roll20 at the same time, trying to navigate those maps and stuff like that. At the time, I think what made it really bad was that I wasn't fully solid with the rules. But in both instances, number one, because at the time 5e had just come out, so I was just learning the rules, and I didn't spend enough time to really sit down with them and feel better with them. So, and I'll come back to that in a second, because the same thing happened with Shadowrun 1e, is that I hadn't played it since I was probably 16, 17, so having to relearn those rules as freaking crazy as they are and passed around all over the book and stuff. The thing that happened that made it bad was that I didn't spend enough time learning the rules, and then at the same time trying to navigate this new medium. So I think my lesson out of that, gave birth to some of the best sessions I've ever had, and that was going with a game that I knew the rules really well. I love the rules. I had a passion for the rules, and so that would lead me into actually a couple of games. One was 5e and one was Dungeon World. I already spoke about my love for both. I had a session of Dungeon World where we roll the dice. They have great character sheets and roll 20, and at the end, the players, I hadn't even thought this was going to happen, but they decided to sacrifice themselves and for the glory of what was to come, and it was really neat that we were able to have a good solid connection, physically and actually mentally and along across the table. But we sat back and we realized that we just had an awesome shared experience where one player was in Denmark, another player was in Singapore, another player was in Australia, and then the last player was in the Bronx, and then I was in Southern California. And we sat back and we thought, we never would, to your point, we never would have been friends if not for this game, if not for this new resurgence of role-playing games. And that made it really awesome because I knew Dungeon World like the back of my hand. I know the rules super well, and I also had a lot of practice with Roll20. So nothing got in the way of just narrative. Like you said, over the last 4 sessions of your AD&D module, you're starting to just get into that narrative now.
Right.
So I'll turn it back over to you. How about you? What's your best and worst?
On the worst, I would say I can't point to one specific session, but I would say it was either technical issues, like our first AD&D session was really tough because none of the players knew the rules. Mm-hmm. Only I did, and I'm reading the Dungeon Master's Guide for the 3rd time now.
I looked for the simple version. I looked for the Chinese only version. That was exactly.
Yeah, so we were shaky on the rules, like you're saying, and then everybody was trying to get back into using the online tools, and it was just really challenging for us. And Google Hangouts wasn't working well for us. So we've had those things, but also, and this is probably a good thing for GMs to think about. Interpersonal interactions online are not the same as interpersonal interactions in the flesh, especially when there's conflict. Yeah. And so if there's a conflict between players at a computer, it's a lot easier to walk away.
Yep. Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see you later.
It's not engage. And I'm a pastor. I don't know if y'all know me or not, but one thing I tell people who are going through marriage, or whether pre-marriage counseling or they're married, is that it's really important in a marriage to be able to fight well. And I think it's true in a gaming group too. Really in friendship, you've got to be able to speak your mind and say, I don't think that's right, and to work through that in a healthy way. And it's a little bit harder online. And so I've had guys and gals slam their computer shut before when a character died, and then we're texting, we can't get a hold of them, that sort of thing. And that just doesn't happen in the same way at the table. And so that's unfortunate. But here's the thing, they came back the next session, and we were able to work through it. And that's where, as a GM, I feel like you almost have the job of being a reconciler within the group when that sort of thing happens.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Even want to take you're the leader of the group, and so you got to be willing to step out and to have those conversations and do what needs to be done. Because I think you can be friends with people over the internet. It just takes a little different kind of work than in person. Yeah. So those are kind of the most challenging ones. The best ones. Man, I really think about that 3-year campaign we had, where these were guys and girls that we really got to know each other well. And it got to the point to where it was like you were playing with a group around a table. You have these inside jokes that are going, you have these kind of ongoing little plot lines between characters. And it got to a point where, you ever had a session where nobody rolled a die? It's like you all forgot to do it.
It's weird, and you don't know it until it happens.
You're just so engaged in the process, and there's a level of trust and teamwork there that only comes from playing together. And that's in my opinion, the biggest benefit of online gaming is that people who don't have access to a gaming group who are separated from people they used to game with a long time ago, they can play together.
Yeah.
And so, Daniel Fisher, when he was on my podcast one time, he said, my internet may cut off. I'm at the end of a long country road somewhere. And it sounded like he's just at this very secluded place. And I'm in a pretty small town too, but yet we're able to connect across these miles and share this hobby. So there is a camaraderie and a friendship that grows even when you're playing online. There are setbacks, there are barriers, but they can be overcome. And honestly, the tech, you can knock that out the first few weeks. You can get past that. And from there on out, it's just normal growing a group.
Yeah. And be patient through those. It's like, it's different than when you're in a live game. It's like the glitches are, somebody didn't bring tacos. That might be a glitch.
That's a big glitch.
Somebody forgot the Mountain Dew. Okay, somebody's gonna get shanked with a fork. But I mean the technical glitches and stuff. I mean, I would say actually build it into your session 0. And when I may actually have a couple of episodes down the line here where I wanted to sit down and focus on session 0s as a whole, but until that conversation, I would say build it into that. It's where you're building your characters and that sort of thing, but save some time at the very beginning to work out those technical glitches. And then, like you said, a couple sessions in, you'll kind of get into the rhythm, like, oh, I got to hit the reconnect button. Oh, better refresh, or you know what, screw this, I'm switching to Opera. It works way better. So, give yourself some time and some runway for that. I mean, hell's bells, I've used Facebook Messenger, or you have too.
Yeah.
You taught me a few things using that to run a session 0 leading up to getting together online. But you know what? There's so much to this. Like you said, we're in the midst of we're riding the crest of this renaissance of RPGs, and I think that adding the context or adding the medium of the online connection has just kind of made it last so much longer, and I think is sending it into a direction that I don't think anybody was really expecting.
No.
I mean, to think that you can go on Twitch. We're on Twitch right now just kind of doing a little soft test of this situation here, but there's folks that are on Twitch right now that run games for people to watch, and instead of going and watching major network shows and stuff, they get throngs of followers. You go all the way up to things like, Critical Role or It Me JP, and they're getting thousands of viewers at a time, much less when people go to YouTube to watch it afterwards, and they're still building into the thousands of viewership. So, I mean, it's interesting it's kind of cool. Like when that you've got something going on with a group, you feel that click happening. Other people are feeling that too when they watch. So it's like you said, man, it's a good time to be in the hobby, and I'm really, really stoked to see where it's going to go. I really am. So, all right. Well, you know what? It's been a little bit of a longer episode than normal, but I think it's, we've been a couple weeks without a session, and I thought it'd be kind of nice to have a little bit of a extended episode here. But Jason, thanks so much for joining on, man. I really appreciate it.
I am more than happy to do it, man. It was a lot of fun.
So tell us a little bit about ways we can connect with you.
Yeah, the easiest way really is to follow me on Twitter. I'm Wood_Jason D, as in David. That's my middle name. So Wood_Jason D on Twitter. You can also go on madcleric.com. That's my blog. And you can get the link through to my Facebook group too, which is just the Mad Cleric on Facebook. You can search for that group and join it. But that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And mostly you're going to find me talking about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons these days. I'm turning into a grognard apparently.
Yeah, baby.
But it's fun, man. It's great. I really do like the system. It's great.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to reach back into the vaults and pull gems out there, right?
So Thursday, I'm going to have a short little vlog, and one of the things I'm going to be talking about is just comparing these two covers. There's so much that can be said about how 5th edition compares to 1st edition just by looking at these two pictures.
Yep.
But it's really neat stuff, man.
And you know what's awesome is that the video connection chose that time to reestablish firmly so that we could see those covers side by side. Oh, it's so good. The digital gods are with us. Well, you know what? Thanks again for joining up. And as always out there, this is a show for new GMs and old GMs alike. You've got an old one right here. So I'm glad to share whatever wisdom I can scratch together, and especially with the guests like Jason Wood here to really add to it. So get together, play some games. You want to find out some more about what we've been talking about? Check the show notes here in the YouTube entry. And dang it, I want to play right now, and I know I've got to go, and I've got to go and do work right now as of the time of this recording, and it's making me nuts because I know how easy it is to just hop online and say, hey, let's do a pickup game. Let's get together. Let's sigh. Well, have fun, kids. We will talk to you soon. If you have any questions or anything, you can hit me up on Twitter as well at GSPKHEEGAN, GSP Keegan. I picked probably the most confusing Twitter handle out there. And you can also find us on Facebook in Facebook.com/GameStoleProfits, which leads you to the Tavern. And that's where I actually ended up meeting this guy here. But look forward to hearing from you. As always, get together, play some games, meet some new people, and make those friends. We'll look forward to hearing from you all very soon.
And happy Mardi Gras.
Happy Mardi Gras. That's right. Have fun with that.